All right, buckle up, everyone, because this deep dive is going to take us straight to the land of Oz, Australia.
It sounds like a fun trip.
Yeah, we got a ton of requests to learn more about, well, surfing in Australia.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we've been, doing our homework,
Right.
checking out all the best resources, and we found this awesome episode
Yeah.
of the Easy English podcast.
Uh-huh.
It's all about phrasal verbs,
Interesting.
but they use like surfing in Australia as like their main example. So
Perfect.
we're going to be learning about Aussie surfing culture
Two birds, one stone.
and those tricky phrasal verbs.
Yeah, those can be tough.
So it's going to be a fun educational deep dive.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's get started. And what's super interesting is that surfing in Australia wasn't like always a thing.
Oh, right.
I mean, it wasn't like, native to Australia.
Right.
It actually arrived with Duke Kahanamoku, a Hawaiian surfer,
Wow.
back in 1915.
Imagine that.
I mean, can you imagine like introducing a whole sport to a country that's,
And now it's like iconic for it.
now known for it?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
wild. What was it like back then? Was everyone like immediately stoked to have surfing come to Australia?
Well, it wasn't like, boom, an overnight success story,
Right.
Kahanamoku actually carved a surfboard out of some local wood.
Oh, wow.
And he gave like this demonstration in Sydney.
Uh-huh.
And it did spark some interest.
Yeah.
But it really took off after World War II.
Mm.
Yeah, that's when surfing kind of like became part of the Aussie identity.
Okay, so it wasn't like Kahanamoku just like dropped in and,
Yeah, not like instant,
changed everything overnight. It was more like planting a seed
more gradual.
that grew over time.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
And now, over 2.5 million Australians surf regularly.
Whoa.
That's huge. Think about it. That's a massive chunk of their population.
I know. It's like saying everyone in Chicago surfs.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It has to be more than just a hobby, right? At that point.
Oh, it's a lifestyle, for sure.
Yeah.
The podcast actually describes it as a relaxed way of thinking about the world,
Huh.
which, I mean, I totally get that.
I could see that.
Being in the ocean, riding the waves, connecting with nature.
Yeah.
It just kind of seems like it naturally leads to a more, like, chill outlook on life.
I agree.
Yeah. And it's not just for, like, a certain type of person either,
Okay. Yeah.
You'll see students riding waves next to business people.
Huh.
Even grandparents out there catching a wave or two.
I love that. Like, age is just a number when it comes to passion.
Totally.
But of course, we can't talk about Australian surfing without mentioning
Oh, yeah. I know where you're going with
the
this.
sharks.
Right? The other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Australian waters are home to all sorts of shark species.
Hmm.
And safety is, like, a big concern.
Yeah, I bet. So how do Aussies deal with that risk? I mean, do they just, like, throw on a wetsuit and pray?
Huh. No, not quite. They have protected beaches with lifeguards.
Okay.
That's pretty common. And you want to know something really interesting?
What's that?
Some beaches even have shark alarms.
Wait, what? Shark alarms, like a siren that goes off if they spot a shark?
Exactly.
Wow.
Can you imagine hearing that alarm while you're in the water?
Oh my gosh. That would make my heart skip a beat.
Right. Total adrenaline rush.
Wow, talk about adding some extra spice to your surf session.
Right.
But hey, maybe that's part of that relaxed way of thinking, like, accepting the risk
Yeah. Yeah.
and just living in the moment. Okay, so we've gotten a glimpse of the Aussie surf culture, the chill vibes, and the adrenaline rush.
Definitely.
Now let's ride the waves into those phrasal verbs.
Great segue.
Thanks.
So, phrasal verbs, for those who might not be familiar,
Yeah.
they're basically these combinations of verbs with prepositions or adverbs.
Uh-huh.
And together, they create a whole new meaning.
Yeah, and sometimes they feel like a secret code, you know?
I know, right?
Like hang out. It doesn't mean like literally hanging from something.
No, haha, not in this context.
Okay.
Here, hang out just means spending time somewhere,
Real.
especially in a relaxed way.
Gotcha.
Like the podcast talks about how surfers hang out at the beach,
Hmm.
chatting, watching the waves, just enjoying the atmosphere.
Right, right. So it's more about the vibe
Exactly.
than the like physical act of hanging.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. What about ride the waves? I think we can probably guess this one.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. It means to surf.
Okay.
Simple, but it really captures what surfing is all about.
Totally. Like you can almost picture it, right? Lighting on top of the water. effortlessly
For sure.
take part. This is one I use all the time.
Yeah, it's a very common phrasal verb.
Yeah.
It just means to participate in something.
Right.
Like the surfer's taking part in competitions.
And speaking of competitions, those surfers probably have to work out like crazy to stay in shape.
Oh,
Yeah, workout here just means to exercise, to train. Surfing may look effortless,
oh,
but it's a serious full-body workout.
I can imagine all that paddling and balancing, battling the waves.
Yeah.
You'd have to be pretty dedicated to like get up early and hit the surf before work.
Wow, that's commitment.
I know, right?
And speaking of get up,
Yeah.
it just means to, get out of bed in this case.
Right.
Although I'm sure some surfers do get up on their boards before sunrise.
Oh, definitely. Then it's putting on the wetsuit
Yeah,
and maybe even putting on some music to get pumped up.
right. Put on has a couple of meanings depending on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Clothing, like putting on a wetsuit.
Yeah.
Or like starting something, like music.
Oh, wait, so many phrasal verbs.
Please no.
So little time. But let's keep this vocabulary wave rolling.
I like that.
What about switch off? I feel like after a long day, that's exactly what I want to do.
Totally. It's a
Yeah.
great way to unwind.
To just relax, Stop thinking about work or stress, like heading to the beach to switch off and enjoy the simple things.
Yeah, I can practically feel the stress melting away just thinking about it.
Right.
But even when you're trying to switch off, there's one thing you can't forget, right?
Oh, definitely.
You always gotta watch out for those sharks.
Exactly. Watch out means to be careful. Pay attention to potential dangers.
Right.
And sharks are a reality in those waters. Surfers always need to be aware.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that even in the most beautiful places,
Yeah,
there are always elements of risk.
definitely.
And if a shark does show up, those shark alarms we talked about, they'll go off, letting everyone know there's danger nearby.
Exactly. Hopefully that's enough to scare them away.
I hope so. But even with precautions, sometimes Mother Nature has other plans. And you might just find yourself knocked down by a wave.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us.
I've had my fair share of wipeouts in the ocean. Thankfully, no sharks, though. But getting knocked down isn't the end, right?
No, not at all. The important thing is to keep on trading.
Right.
Don't let a setback discourage you.
Resilience. That's the name of the game.
Exactly.
And that brings us to our last phrasal verb for this part, which is give up. It's tempting to do sometimes, isn't it? Just throw in the towel.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
But in surfing, just like in life, the real reward comes from not giving up,
Right.
from pushing through those challenges.
So even when you get knocked down
Keep on going.
and you don't give up on
Yeah.
your goals.
Exactly.
I love that. It's such a powerful message. And it goes way beyond just surfing. So we've covered a lot here. From the history of surfing in Australia to
Yeah.
all these phrasal verb nuances. It's cool how two totally different topics can,
They intertwine.
yeah, and enrich each other. It really does. Now, I'm curious, what stood out to you most from what we've talked about?
What really strikes me is how those phrasal verbs really perfectly illustrate the whole surfing experience,
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
You got the thrill of riding the waves and then the effort of getting up on the board, the grit of, keeping on after a knockdown.
Yeah.
And then that bliss of swishing off and just enjoying the moment.
That's a great point. It's like those phrasal verbs aren't just words on a page,
Yeah, exactly.
They're capturing a feeling, a whole way of life.
It makes you think about language in a whole different way, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's not just about the rules and the grammar. It's about understanding of the culture, the experiences that shape how people talk.
For sure. Speaking of experiences, the podcast ended with this quote from Phil Edwards. He's a legendary surfer.
Okay.
And he said, "The best surfer out there is the one having the most fun."
Ooh, I like that.
What do you think about that?
I think it really gets at the heart of what surfing is all about,
Yeah.
It's not about being the best or winning competitions. It's about the joy of the ride, embracing the challenge, connecting with the ocean.
I love that perspective. It's so easy to get caught up in trying to be perfect, you know?
Right.
We forget to just enjoy ourselves, have fun.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything, not just surfing, learning a new language, whatever. Having fun should be a top priority.
Couldn't agree more. And, it kind of goes back to that whole relaxed way of thinking we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of control,
Yeah.
and just embracing the moment, the spontaneity of life.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, how can you take what we've learned about Australian surfing
Right.
and phrasal verbs and actually apply it to your own life?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is approach everything with a sense of curiosity and playfulness.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to try new things, even if you might get knocked down a couple times. Just embrace the challenge. Keep on trying. And most importantly, have fun along the way.
Perfectly said. And don't forget to watch out for those metaphorical sharks, the ones that might try to hold you back.
Exactly. Stay aware, but don't let fear stop you from, riding those waves, whatever those waves may be in your life.
This deep dive has been awesome. We've learned so much, not just about Australian surfing or phrasal verbs, but about life.
It's been great exploring all this with you and sharing it with everyone listening. I hope it's been as interesting and thought-provoking for them as it's been for us.
For sure. Before we wrap up, I want to encourage everyone listening to think about your own experiences with phrasal verbs. Have you ever used any of the ones we talked about today?
Yeah. What other ones do you find interesting or tricky?
And how can you apply that surfer's mindset to your own goals? That resilience, that, fun-loving attitude, that relaxed way of thinking.
I love that.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can connect with us on social media or leave a comment on our website. Until next time, keep riding those waves and keep learning.
And remember, the best surfer is the one having the most fun.
Such a simple phrase, but wow, so powerful. It really is a great reminder that sometimes we just need to switch off all that pressure.
Yeah, totally.
And just remember to enjoy the ride.
Exactly. It's not always about pushing ourselves to the absolute limit,
Right.
Sometimes the best or the most fulfilling experiences come from just being present in the moment and just having fun.
And who knows, maybe by embracing that surfer's mindset, we can achieve even more than we thought possible.
Absolutely. When we let go of all that fear and self-doubt, it opens us up to a whole world of possibilities.
Yeah.
It's like catching that perfect wave, right? You got to trust your instincts, embrace the moment, and just go for it.
Well said. And even if you wipe out, hey, there's always another wave coming.
Exactly.
You just got to get up and try again.
That's the beauty of it, right? Of surfing, of life. It's a constant cycle of learning, adapting, and growing.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this epic deep dive into Australian surfing and phrasal verbs.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new today and had some fun along the way.
Definitely.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those boards waxed. Aloha!
Cheers, mate.